guys, welcome back to my channel. My name's Kim. Today I'm going to be discussing some of my stats from 2020 from all the books that I've read. This is the first time I've ever properly delved into what I've actually been picking up, the types of authors I've been picking up, the types of genres that I've been picking up, non-fiction, fiction, etc. So I ended up reading 49 books in the year 2020, at least so far. There's a few days left and I might be able to push it up to 50, but I'm not going to include anything else from today, and today's the 28th of December. Yeah, so I think in the beginning of the year I had aimed to read 30 books this year, so I'm really pleased that I've kind of read as much as I have. The first stat I'm going to talk about is my star ratings for the year. So I'll pop a little pie chart up here so you can see it visually what's going on. But out of the 49 books I ended up giving predominantly 4 stars, which I think is really successful actually. I'm really happy with that. And then coming close behind are 4 and 3 star ratings, which means that I only ended up giving out 1 1-star and 1 2-star read. So I'm really happy about that. It could be that I'm too lenient with my star ratings. So we'll see. Obviously I've been reading a lot more than I have done before in my adult life, so maybe I will become a harsher judge in the future, and right now it's just I haven't read for so long that I'm just yes, I love this, I love this, I love this. So it could be that reason. I'm just a bit inexperienced at the moment, so or it could just mean that I just love everything that I've picked up. Although I do think that there are some 3-star reads that maybe could be pushed over the edge into 2 stars. So yeah, I'm really happy about that, and I really hope that in 2021 the good reading luck continues on. So the next thing I looked at was the gender of the authors that I have been reading from. I have been reading from kind of multiple authors sometimes. Hang on, no, that doesn't make sense. I have been reading multiple books by the same author. For instance, I've read 5 books this year by Robin Hobb, so she is kind of counted as 5 counts as a female. But yeah, I just thought it would be interesting to see kind of my male to female ratios. I'll pop it up here, but as you can see by the pie graph, I didn't read any non-binary authors, which is something that I do want to change next year, and I want to seek out and make sure that I am kind of diversifying. And the other thing that you can see is that I read a hell of a lot more books by female authors than male authors. So that's really good that I'm kind of bigging up the female authors, but also I would kind of like to balance it out a little bit better and pull back up my male author reading, just to kind of balance things out a little bit more, especially when it comes to kind of non-fiction race related books. I think I want to make sure I'm reading more from the male perspective than I have done in the past. So I've written down just a few books and authors I already own. So a book I already own from a non-binary author is Life as a Unicorn by Amru Al-Kadi. So I have this on Audible and they narrate it themselves. And this is a memoir where Amru speaks about when they realised they were gay and when they began their journey into becoming a drag queen. So they're from London and they come from a Muslim family. So it tells that story of coming from a very religious family and moving into becoming a drag queen, and accepting themselves. So I'm really excited about picking that one up, and I've heard it's funny as well as very touching story, so I'm very excited to pick that one up in 2021 for sure. I have a couple of books, I believe they're ebooks, I don't think that they're audiobooks, but they're written by 2 different black authors. So the first one is Natives, which is written by Akala, and Natives is about the author's experiences with racism growing up in London as a black man. And the second book that I have on racism is The Skin We're In by Desmond Cole, which is about racism in Canada. So I'm really keen to pick both of those guys up in 2021 as well. So then I took a little look at kind of how many BAME authors I had read in 2020. So BAME authors is Black, Asian and minority ethnic people. So I wanted to make sure that I wanted to kind of just see how diverse my reading has been this year in reality. So I'll put the pie chart up here, but as you can see, I only read 25% BAME authors this year. Which I'm kind of disappointed in myself in, but that's what it turned out to be. So I am definitely hoping to kind of make sure that that percentage is increased in 2021. And also I want to make sure that I'm reading kind of fiction books written by BAME authors as well as non-fiction books as well, and just kind of reading books by BAME authors in genres that I know that I'm starting to really love, like fantasy and things like that. But there is one non-fiction book that I am very interested in picking up in the new year, which I have already, and that's Hood Feminism by Mickey Kendall. So the reason I really want to pick this up is because it's about feminism, and I haven't really read around feminism much at all, to be honest. I have read a couple of very short kind of essays by different people, but yeah, I'd like to kind of find out more about that. So Hood Feminism is a book about feminism that also includes discussions about bigger kind of other social issues, such as racism and kind of, or how it affects people with disabilities, or how it affects the LGBTQ plus community and things like that. So I'm very, very keen to pick that up. I have definitely heard good things about this one. So then next up, I looked at the different nationalities of the different authors that I read. So I ended up reading books from authors from 10 different countries, which I think wasn't too bad, but it wasn't that great when you look at the pie graph and you see that predominantly they are people from England and people from the USA. And I put England because I don't think I've read any books by authors from Scotland, Ireland or Wales. So I just wanted to make that distinction. Yeah, and as you can see, the country that I read the most from is definitely the USA, which isn't surprising, really. I think that kind of makes sense in a way. But yeah, I do definitely want to kind of try and alter that shape of the graph for next year, and try and branch out into other countries and find books from genres, like I've already said, from people from other countries that are writing in the genres that I really enjoy. So yeah, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, hopefully you will, but the 2% is just one book. So when I say I've read from 10 different countries, I've barely read from those other countries that are 2%. That's just one book. So I do want to branch out, and what's going to help me do that, I think, is by pushing my Expedition 3 pages through, which is my reading challenge where I want to kind of read around the world. So I'm just going through the countries and picking 4 different books from that country to read from. And I really slowed my pace with that reading challenge, so I definitely want to pick that up in 2021 and keep going. I'm kind of giving little spoilers for my plans for 2021. I'll probably tell you that again in that video, but yeah, anyway. I would also like to join in with more readathons kind of that base themselves around other countries. So if anybody knows of any, if you wouldn't mind letting me know down in the comments, that would be really helpful. Yeah, it'd be really nice to kind of like join in with some readathons celebrating other countries and other authors from other countries and kind of learn about a country that way. So if you know of something like that exists, I would really like to know about it. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to next year kind of trying to delve out a bit more into other countries. So the next stat I have for you, I looked at my fiction and non-fiction reading, and this I was kind of disappointed in myself a little bit, because when I started this channel I did kind of want to be a little bit more of a non-fiction reader than a fiction reader. But I think what's happened this year is that I've realised I've absolutely loved fantasy books. So I've gone off on like a tangent reading loads of fantasy books, which I'm not upset about because I've really enjoyed myself, and I didn't realise that I loved fantasy books so much. But I would like to read more non-fiction. If I could get it like 50-50, then that would be really nice. I definitely appreciate fiction a lot more now than I ever did before. I remember a few years ago I used to think it was a complete waste of time to read fiction books. Such a stupid thing to think, but that is genuinely what I thought. I was very snobby about it. And yeah, and so I'm really glad I've learned this year not to be a snob about that kind of thing, and that you can learn obviously so much from a fiction book, but I do want to like make it a bit more 50-50 in the future. Yeah, so the last stat I have for you is my genre stat. So I just wanted to see what kind of genres I've been reading this year. And yeah, so fantasy definitely wins out. But like I say, I read 5 of Robin Hobb's books, so that like immediately bumps it up anyway. And then 19% I read sci-fi, which kind of shocked me in a way, but I've really enjoyed the sci-fi this year. That's not always strictly true. I think sci-fi is like a bit of a hit or miss with me. Because I studied science, I can be a bit judgy about the way it's presented in a book. But I think if it's done well, then I do end up really liking it. But if there's too many holes in things, or I feel like, oh, they haven't considered that, or oh, that's a bit twisted in a bit of a weird way, then it puts me completely off, which is a bit stupid really, but I should probably just pay attention to the story, but I find it really, really distracting. With this wheel as well, I did also include my non-fiction books in the genres, so that's why I've got like current affairs up there, and I've got memoirs up there as well, and also STEM. So I am glad that kind of STEM and current affairs have got like a fairly big portion of pie between them. And my little 2% piece of pie is poetry, and I only read one poetry book, and I didn't end up putting that in either fiction or non-fiction because I really wasn't sure what you class poetry as, because it's kind of fiction and it's kind of non-fiction at the same time, especially with a collection of like, you never have just one poem, do you? Unless it's on a poster. Yeah, so in the last piece of pie, I ignored the poetry book, so that isn't actually in that stat collection. So just before I go, there is one more book that I want to pick up in 2021, and that is a non-fiction book about disability, because one of the most glaring holes in my reading is anything with real disability rep in it. I think the only books I read with some disability rep was Curse So Dark and Lonely and A Heart So Fierce and Broken, where the main female protagonist in that has cerebral palsy. But other than that, I haven't really read anything with disability rep that I can recall from my head now. So the book I want to pick up is called Disfigured: On Fairy Tales, Disability and Making Space by Amanda Leduc. And this book is a non-fiction book, like I said, where there is discussion about how disability has been represented in fairy tales and how that's kind of shaped our view of people with disabilities. And I've heard that that is a really, really interesting book to read and a very eye-opening book. And certainly when I've heard people talk about it, it's one of those things where I hadn't even really considered it before, but when you hear it, you can't believe that you've never considered it before. So yeah, I'm really, really interested to get to that one, definitely. Actually, there is another book with some disability rep which I want to get to, and it's a middle grade book which probably a lot of people have heard of, and I know a lot of people love it, and there is a movie as well, and it's called Wonder by R.J. Palacio, and this story follows a little boy who was born with a facial difference and about his experiences with that. Yeah, so that's all I really know about it, to be honest. But yeah, those two books I am hoping to pick up in 2021 as well. So yeah, I really enjoyed doing this actually, like breaking down what I had read throughout the year and just kind of working out where I'd like to go next year with my reading. I do have more goals for 2021, but I'm going to be talking about them more in a video later on in this little series. So yeah, that'll be coming soon. Yeah, so I do love planning, I have to say. Planning is like one of my most favourite things in the world. And I think definitely in BookTube, there's loads of people that feel exactly the same. Yeah, anything about planning and diaries and stationery, I absolutely love. I'm a much more successful planner than I am an executor, that's for sure. Sometimes I need a kick up the butt to actually do anything useful, but I always plan it really well beforehand. So do you guys collect any data or anything like that? Is that something that anybody does? Yeah, I find it super interesting and really fun to plot everything out and find out what's going on. So that's everything for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow for day 7.